Good evening and thank you for joining us. Thunder Bay Mayor Bill Morrow will table a resolution at City Council on Monday night, calling on the federal government to welcome Ukrainians fleeing the Russian invasion and positioning Thunder Bay as an ideal settlement area for Ukrainian refugees in Canada. The mayor attended last weekend's rally for Ukraine at City Hall and says the city needs immigration to address a stagnant population. Morrow notes the city has had a tough time retaining refugees and immigrants from some countries who don't see their cultures reflected locally. But he says that wouldn't be the case for refugees from Ukraine, as there's already a significant Ukrainian population established in the city. The mayor adds there's plenty of capacity to support resettlement through the Thunder Bay Multicultural Association.
You know, the language is here, their culture, their food, their music, their church, their religion. All of these things are very important to people in terms of where they want to live when they are moving of their own accord, or when, as in this case, they're being forced to move and leave. So I see this as a real opportunity.
Multicultural Association Director Kathy Woodbeck says that as a resettlement agency, they would support any refugees who might be destined for Thunder Bay. But she says there's no indication at this time that refugees are looking to resettle. As the United Nations High Commission for Refugees still hopes displaced Ukrainians will be able to return home when the conflict ends. We'll have the latest on the attack on Ukraine later in the news hour.
Today marked day 4 of a high-profile kidnapping and murder trial at the Thunder Bay Courthouse. 50-year-old David Huey and 30-year-old Musab Saboon are accused of killing 40-year-old Lee Kyoto in February of 2019. Today, the court heard from 3 employees at a local bowling alley, along with a customer, about what they saw during a confrontation between Kyoto and a person matching Saboon's description. One employee said she saw the 2 men having a heated argument in which curse words were used. She asked them to leave the building so they wouldn't upset other customers. Another employee saw the 2 men walk out of the bowling alley and get into the back seat of a car together. Kyoto was found dead on Mission Island the next day. Under cross-examination, the witnesses acknowledged they did not hear any threats made and described it as more of a scolding by a friend. Tomorrow, the court will hear from the Crown's key witness, Marshal Hardy Fox, who was also charged in the murder but later pleaded guilty to the lesser charge of accessory after the fact.
Evidence is piling up that Ontario's mask mandate will be dropped in the coming weeks. District Medical Officer Dr. Janet DeMille says she just hopes when that time comes, those with opposing viewpoints will be kind to one another and show consideration for those who remain vulnerable. Corey Nordstrom has more.
It appears the province's mask mandate will not be in place by the end of March. That would be the final domino to fall in Doug Ford's reopening plan, though no official date has been given. Dr. Janet DeMille says she wants that decision to be made with all of the data in mind and to not be rushed.
Really considering the people that remain vulnerable, people who are older in age, people who have underlying conditions, people who are immunocompromised or on treatments that may cause them to be immunocompromised, and make sure that any decisions that are made are inclusive of all that.
Premier Ford has stated that his government is not far away from dropping Ontario's masking mandate, hinting that it could come following March break. Now, DeMille did not want to speculate on those timelines, only saying that when the announcement is made, she hopes people are respectful of one another despite differing views.
It kind of has divided us in many ways because of differences of opinions that people have had, and what we do need to do is, as part of our recovery from the pandemic, is really try to recover from that as well.
Earlier in the week, the province did away with capacity limits and vaccine passports. DeMille would have preferred the province stuck with its initial March 14th date for those 2 elements of reopening, noting the impacts it could have on the level of COVID cases locally and those who are still unvaccinated.
And I do have a bit of concern for people who have chosen to remain unvaccinated, that if they are now out and about more, going to the cinema, going to a restaurant, that they have actually a higher risk of potentially getting COVID.
DeMille encourages anyone who is yet to get immunized to visit the CLE clinic. Corey Nordstrom, TVT News.
Well, the latest indication that Ontario's mask mandate won't be around for much longer came today from the Chief Medical Officer of Health. Dr. Kieran Moore says it could be lifted by the end of the month.
Because the trends look so good that we can anticipate, if the trends continue, removing mandatory masking by the end of March. But I ask all Ontarians, if you're vulnerable to this virus, if you haven't received your full dose of vaccine, as a first, second, third, or fourth dose, that you remain prudent, that we remain kind and considerate to those that decide to wear masks.
Premier Doug Ford recently said he may do away with the mask mandate by the time students return from March break.
COVID-19 hospitalizations across Ontario have fallen to the lowest level since December, with 834 people in hospital. But the caseload at the Regional Health Sciences Centre is still fairly high. There are 34 COVID patients at the regional, one more than yesterday, and the number of ICU patients also went up by one. There are now 7 people in intensive care with the virus. The overall hospital occupancy rate is now at 103%, and the ICU is now over capacity at 101% occupancy.
With spring on its way and the snow starting to melt, local motorists are encountering more potholes on their daily commute. Thankfully, work has already begun to fill those craters, and that will be even more important this year after harsh winter conditions severely damaged many local streets. Vasilios Bellows reports.
While there were relatively mild conditions last winter resulting in fewer potholes, this year has been a different story. The intense winter Thunder Bay is currently easing out of saw heavy snowfall and colder temperatures, resulting in above-average damage to roads in the city. Local drivers have probably noticed a lot of big craters forming, leading to a very bumpy ride on many streets. In response, the city has already begun the effort to fill potholes, including help from the Python 5000 that was purchased in 2017. Road Supervisor Ian Spaljerich explains the machine is currently in some of the most damaged areas in the city.
So the Python's out right now, focusing on arterial and collector roadways during the spring melt. And we'll continue doing that until the summer, and we can get some hot mix asphalt, and then we'll continue on with that. Depends what areas it's going to and how far it has to travel, but it can do anywhere from 3 to 10 tons during a day.
The Python 5000 was waiting on an important part in January, but the city received it just in time for the snowmelt, which has proved even more important this year considering the conditions. Despite having the machine, traditional repair crews will still play an important role in this difficult pothole season. Spaljerich said more workers will become available in the spring.
We have crews out as well, hand crews doing the work as well, along with the Python when available. We're still dealing with some snow events and sanding and icing, and that's obviously another priority for us as well right now.
The winter months have clearly had some lasting impact for Thunder Bay drivers, who recognize the damage the cold has done with every bump in the road. The city is looking to tackle the issue as quickly as possible, and efforts will be ramped up as more of the snow melts. Vasilios Bellows, CBC News.
Magnus Theatre will once again open its doors to the public this evening following a 2-month pause due to the Omicron wave. The first main stage performance of 2022 is a comedy called Salt Baby. Kurt Black has the details.
Everything seems more unclear. So I was thinking that there's a way to know my background for sure. To know everything.
Yeah?
I want to get my DNA analyzed.
Phelan Johnson's play Salt Baby is ready to capture hearts of local theater goers when it hits the stage for the next 2 weeks, telling the story of a young Indigenous woman whose skin tone sets her apart both in her First Nations community and in the city, setting off a journey to discover where she fits into the world. It's a theme that Salt Baby director Natalie Robitaille feels will resonate with the audience.
It's all about Salt Baby, who's sort of exploring her culture and who she is between living in the city but being from the First Nations Reserve. So it's all about her struggle with that and finding herself.
This from a girl who tells everyone what I bought them for Christmas.
That was forever ago.
2 years ago.
I got excited.
And who told Clara when I hit her dog?
It slipped out.
Brianne Tucker stars as the show's protagonist, Salt Baby, and says she's excited to bring a character she relates with so much to life on stage.
Sometimes you're kind of informed by the world that you're not enough of something. You're not white enough, you're not Indigenous enough, you're not blonde enough, you're not thin enough. And it's taken me a long time to really come to terms with the fact that just me is enough. I am Métis enough. I am Brie enough. And hopefully that's a journey that the entire audience gets to take with us.
Salt Baby will run until March 19th, and Magnus officials have decided to limit capacity for this show to just 50%.
And if you're nervous about the guy sitting next to you or the people that are too close to you or if someone coughs, you're not going to be able to enjoy the show. So let's just make it as easy for people as possible.
And for those who attend the matinee showing on March 13th, the play will be followed by a virtual meet and greet with Salt Baby's playwright, Phelan Johnson. Kurt Black, TBT News.
A local resident is living out a dream. Thunder Bay's J.C. Lynn Graham has officially entered the Big Brother Canada house. The 10th season of the popular global TV show premiered last night, and the local contestant was very excited to start the competition.
I feel like I'm gonna pass out. Holy crap.
J.C. Lynn was among the first 4 contestants to enter the house, and they immediately formed an alliance. After the 12 other contestants arrived and introductions were made, they were quickly thrust into a head of household competition. J.C. Lynn's challenge involved putting together a foam puzzle inside a door frame. She came oh so close, finishing in 2nd place. That means she could now be one of the people put on the chopping block for eviction. The nominations will happen on tonight's episode at 8 o'clock.
A piece of Thunder Bay's Finnish heritage has been recovered from the wreckage of the former Finnish labor temple. A time capsule from 1909 was found intact in the building's foundation. Just yesterday, the century-old artifact was located, and it's now on display at the Finnish bookstore. Last month, during the demolition of the burned-out building, property owner Brad McKinnon was tipped off about the time capsule. It was successfully recovered from the southwest corner near the Calico coffee shop. After the devastating fire in December, McKinnon is glad that there is a glimmer of positive news surrounding the historic building.
It's nice to see that out of that tragedy, there's some good news. There's a little bit of hope. You know, recovering the scale, recovering the time capsule, being able to recover some of the brick out of the building. There's at least something positive coming out of that fire.
I'm glad that he took all the care necessary, especially around the corners of the building, because we were watching the backhoe there digging and loading trucks up with basically demolished parts of the building for a week and a half now.
It's an important historical artifact for the Finnish community in Thunder Bay and for the community at large. This really belongs to the people of Thunder Bay, and it's nothing short of a miracle that it was recovered.
The time capsule will be opened within the next month at a launch event for a fundraiser to pay for the rebuild of the cupola and other elements of the iconic labor temple. It'll then be given to the Finnish Historical Society.
Also some good